Confidences you've been hearing from people?
I have. I think people are having really different reactions to all of the changes. And just like they did when lockdown started, I think now that people are reemerging, some people are feeling very anxious about it. Some people are feeling very excited about it, and everything in between.
Yeah. Well, help us talk through some of that. What do you think we should be paying attention to, and how should we be preparing ourselves and our loved ones?
Well, I think some people are feeling like they have come to see other people as almost poison, right? Because we flinch almost when we
Yeah.
see big gatherings and people without masks. It's become so ingrained in us. And so I think that some people are feeling like they need to do what we call exposure therapy, which is if you're afraid to go to the market, for example, you might go the first time and take all the precautions you normally take. And when you come back and you find out that you didn't get COVID, maybe as you start getting used to going to the market again, or whatever the thing is that you're getting used to, it starts to be a little bit more comfortable. And so that doesn't mean let down your guard. It means take the precautions. But also, it's sort of like PTSD, that when you see people in gatherings or people together, wherever that is, and you're changing all of a sudden, now is the time to say, I'm going to take it really slow. I need to take it really slow, and I need to slowly expose myself to this, to whatever I'm comfortable with. I think, on the other hand, there are so many of us have found these positive aspects to this year where we had to slow down. We had to take stock. We got to spend more time with our families. We got to, not have the rush of life in the same way. For some people, that's, they don't have to commute to work, and now they're going to have to commute to work again, or they don't want to be in a big office with lots of people, and now they're going to have to do that. So I think that there are things that we can preserve from this year. And that's where I think the most, growth comes in, where people can say, there are aspects of this that I want to take with me as I reemerge from this.
By the way, of course, we invite your questions for Lori Gottlieb, and once again, recommend her book. Yes, Elise has some questions for you, Lori.
Somebody asked, how can we cope with overwhelming grief when we can't make the real difference in tragedy?
How do we cope with the overwhelming grief that we've experienced? Is that the question?
Yeah. When we can't make a difference in a tragedy.
Oh, wow.
There has been so much loss this year, in terms of very tangible loss of life, loss of health, loss of income, those kinds of things. And then there have been the more intangible losses of, all that we had to miss, all that we gave up this year. And I think that as with any kind of grieving, it's really about integrating the loss into your life and being able to make sense of it and to be able to hold that at the same time that you're moving forward. So a lot of people talk about the stages of grief, like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. That was actually for people coming to terms with their own deaths. People with terminal illness coming to terms with their own death. It was not meant for us to grieve something that happened, a loss that happened outside. And I think that people need to understand that it's not about going through those stages necessarily. It's about really sitting with the loss and its impact and being able to integrate that into your life as you move forward. There's no easy fix for that, but if you don't feel the feelings, it's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah. We spoke with a remarkable journalist in Mumbai today, talking about the situation there in India, where it's absolutely overwhelming. And she broke down and talked through it. I really admired her for opening herself up that way and talking to us. I think it was a whole new level of communication. But I mean, there is that feeling of helplessness that we've, somehow we've just been rolled over and missed, and it could be a different story tomorrow.
And that is the thing about COVID, is that we're still in it. And I think that it's really important to be able to hold on to the fact that we are still in this. And when people talk about going back to normal or the new normal,
Yeah.
that this is going to have lots of after effects for a long time. And we can't ignore what's happening in other places like in India, where it's just devastating. And it could be us again tomorrow. And that's the thing about COVID. And so that's why it's really important that we are able to hold on to both of, we are able to do more things, maybe, but we also need to be very vigilant.
At the same time, too, is it important to be able to have joy and to find that and seek that and enjoy seeing each other again?
Well, that's right. I mean, I think even during lockdown, it was so important to find joy, and people felt bad about experiencing joy. They felt like, how can I experience joy when there's so much suffering going on? But it's not one or the other, it's both, and that both can be true. And how do we get through these devastating periods? We have to have some joy in our lives. We wouldn't be able to function without it. So I think that people found joy in being able to slow down and being able to spend more time with their families and being able to not commute, whatever it was. But I think that now it is a joyful thing to be able to see people in person if you're fully vaccinated and you're taking precautions and all of that. It's extremely joyful. And so we need to be able to allow ourselves and give ourselves permission to feel that at the same time that we're feeling all kinds of other things.
Other questions for Lori Gottlieb?
While thankful for your book, I cannot help wondering about to whom or what you turn in these times.
Who do you turn to in these times?
That's such a great question. I go to therapy, and I highly recommend it. I feel like one of the things I was trying to do, and maybe you should talk to someone, was to show you see me going to therapy as a patient, and you see me seeing patients as the clinician. And what I was trying to say in the book is that we're all more the same than we are different. And I think if COVID has shown us anything, it's really that leveling of the playing field in terms of saying we are all humanity is something that I think we finally said, wait a minute, we are all very similar at our core. And, we all need to cope. And I think, most of the therapists, most of my colleagues are, we have been we go to therapy anyway. But I think during COVID, it's been especially important because we are dealing with so many people's loss and grief and devastation throughout this year, and people are really relying on us, and we need a place to go to talk about what's going on in our own lives as well.
We've done stories in recent weeks about burnout among healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, and part of it, I think, is they feel, I should do something about this. That's why I'm here. And yet, in a lot of cases, they feel utterly overmatched and unable to do something. How do they renew themselves?
Self-care is so important. We kind of throw that term around like self-care is taking a bath, right? If you read a magazine, that's what it might say. I think self-care is really about noticing what is going on with you. And I really feel like, especially the frontline workers, especially the people who have been so overwhelmed during this time, that they do need to find the space and the time to talk to someone. And that might be a friend or a family member or a therapist. I think the great thing about a therapist is they can offer you a really good second opinion on your life from someone who's not already in your life. So they can look at you from the vantage point that's very, I was going to say, because so much of therapy has been happening on Zoom because of the pandemic, that it's even more accessible now. And so many people I've heard tried therapy the very first time during on Zoom, and they didn't have to drive somewhere and deal with all the logistical practical issues of getting there. And so with the healthcare workers who just don't have time, they're so overwhelmed. It's the easiest thing now because now you just go on Zoom.
Do you think that'll stay? That Zoom accessibility?
I do. I think it's so important my colleagues said that online therapy was like doing therapy with a condom on, and and that was about how. And I think we all really can replicate the experience of being in a room face to face with another person. We've all seen that this year. That the feeling of sharing that space and the energy in the room and the intimacy of that is very different than one that's mediated by a screen. But at the same time, possible. There was a woman that I saw online, and she had a cello in the background, because now you're seeing into people's houses, and there's that intimacy. And I said, "Whose cello is that?" And she said, "It's mine. I play it every day." And she had played it since she was a child. I had been seeing her for a long time. I thought I knew a lot about this person. I did not know about this whole part of her life that ended up being very relevant to a lot of what we were talking about. It may never have come up, or it may have come up, months later. But because we were online and it happened to be in the background, we were able to talk about that. I see people's children, their pets, their partners, walking in and out or from the other room. And I think that there's something really. I think there's even
Zoom session the other day with several people, and one of the participants' cat crawled on her shoulders, and it lightened everything. It was great. I'm time for us tonight. I know you're busy. Maybe you should talk to somebody, and it's good advice